Welcome to Fun Facts Daily, your source for just the good stuff. Monday through Friday, we're bringing fun facts and news you can use, all carefully curated to uplift and inform. So give yourself a break, relax, and learn something awesome in just a few minutes every day. Hi everyone, I'm Kyle Wood. Today we'll be learning about one of the most influential thinkers in all of history, the ancient Greek philosopher Aristotle. But before we get into the facts, let's warm up our brains with a little challenge to see if you can tell fact from fiction. Consider this. Aristotle is famous for his brilliant mind. He wrote about everything from logic to biology, and he taught many people. Some claim he was even the personal tutor to one of history's most famous conquerors, Alexander the Great. What do you think? Were all the most famous people from history just hanging out together in the ancient world? We'll find out at the end of the episode. Now for your word of the day. Our word for today is eudaimonia. That's eudaimonia. The ancient Greek word eudaimonia is a central concept in Aristotle's philosophy on ethics. It's often translated simply as happiness, but its meaning is much deeper and more rich. Aristotle pointed out that many things we do are a means to some other end, like working to earn money, to buy food and housing and all of that. But he encouraged people to find activities that are their own reward, things you do just for the sake of doing them, because that is what will bring you joy and fulfillment. For him, eudaimonia was about building a life filled with these kinds of intrinsically valuable activities. It's the ultimate goal of human life, an active state of being your best self. The word eudaimonia comes from two Greek words, that's EU meaning good, and daimon meaning spirit or deity. So literally, eudaimonia means having a good spirit. It's not something you can get from external things like money or fame, but something you build from within by developing good habits, using reason, and seeking to excel in all that you do. It's the kind of deep satisfaction that comes from living a meaningful and purposeful life. Time for your daily high five, our top 5 fun facts about Aristotle. Number 1, Aristotle wrote a library's worth of books, but most of those have been lost to history. While we know Aristotle was a prolific writer, the works we have today represent only a fraction of his total output. Historians and scholars estimate that Aristotle wrote around 200 different works on a massive range of subjects, from physics and metaphysics to poetry and politics. However, only about 31 of these works have survived through the centuries. What we have today are mostly his esoteric works, which are believed to be the lecture notes and teaching materials intended for his students within his school. His exoteric works, which were published dialogues and writings intended for the general public, were celebrated in antiquity for their beautiful style, but they've sadly been lost almost entirely. Still, what remains is one of the most important foundations of Western thought. Number 2. Aristotle is considered the father of biology for his hands-on study of the animal kingdom. Long before microscopes or modern scientific equipment, Aristotle was a dedicated and meticulous biologist. He was fascinated by the natural world and spent a great deal of time observing animals to understand how they lived, reproduced, and behaved. He wrote a massive book called History of Animals, in which he described over 500 different species, many in incredible detail. He studied everything from the development of a chick inside an egg to the unique anatomy of an octopus, noting that it had 3 hearts and could change its color. Aristotle's approach was revolutionary because he based his conclusions on direct observation, or what we now call empirical evidence. He would dissect animals to understand their internal structures and was the first to classify them into groups based on shared characteristics, a foundational practice in modern taxonomy. His detailed and systematic study of life laid the groundwork for the sciences of biology and zoology, earning him that title of Father of Biology. Of course, that isn't to say he got it all right. While his approach was groundbreaking, many of its conclusions missed the mark. For instance, he famously believed in spontaneous generation, the idea that creatures like eels could arise directly from mud, and he thought the brain's main job was to cool the blood, while the heart was the center of intelligence. These errors highlight the limits of observation without modern tools, but they don't diminish his incredible achievement in creating a systematic way to study the natural world. Number 3. Aristotle's school was known as the Peripatetics school because he taught while walking. After studying with his own famous teacher Plato for 20 years, Aristotle eventually founded his own school in Athens in 335 BCE. He called it the Lyceum, named after the area where it was located, a grove sacred to Apollo Lyceus. But it wasn't a school with traditional classrooms and desks. Aristotle had a habit of walking around the beautiful covered walkways of the Lyceum, known as the Peripatoi, while he was lecturing. His students would follow along, listening and debating as they strolled. Because of this unique teaching style, his school became known as the Peripatetic school, and his followers were called the Peripatetics, which means the walkers or those who walk about. This active method of learning encouraged dialogue and constant questioning, making education a dynamic and engaging experience. And it helps to support the notion that exercise and a healthy body can also aid in the development of a healthy mind. Number 4. Aristotle wasn't actually from Athens, the city most famously associated with him. When we think of the great Greek philosophers like Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle, we usually picture them in the bustling intellectual hub of Athens. While Aristotle spent much of his adult life there, he wasn't a native Athenian. He was born in 384 BCE in a small town called Stagira, located in northern Greece. His father, Nicomachus, was the personal physician of the king of Macedon, which was a powerful neighboring kingdom. This outsider status had a significant impact on his life. As a foreigner living in Athens, he couldn't own property and faced periods of political suspicion, especially due to his connections with the rising power of Macedon. In fact, he was forced to flee Athens twice during his life to avoid being persecuted for political reasons. But this unique background gave him a different perspective and likely influenced his objective, observational approach to studying the world around him. And our fifth and final fun fact for today: Aristotle invented a system of logic that remained the gold standard for over 2,000 years. One of Aristotle's most enduring legacies is his creation of a formal system of reasoning known as logic. He was the first person to analyze the process of how we draw conclusions and to lay out clear rules for making a sound argument. The centerpiece of his system was the syllogism, a type of deductive reasoning where you arrive at a specific conclusion based on two broader premises. The most famous example is, all men are mortal. Socrates is a man, therefore Socrates is mortal. This might seem simple to us now, but it was a groundbreaking invention at the time. Aristotle's work on logic, collectively known as the Organon, provided humanity with a toolkit for clear and rational thinking. This system was so complete and well designed that it was taught in universities as the definitive model of logic all the way through the 19th century. His work laid the foundation not only for Western philosophy, but also other fields like the sciences and even the law. Now for some news you can use. Aristotle wasn't just concerned with big ideas about broad philosophies, he also had practical advice for living a good life. One of the most famous tips is his concept of the golden mean. This idea is that moral virtue is usually found in the middle point between two extremes or vices. One extreme is a vice of deficiency, having too little of something, and the other is the vice of excess, having too much. For example, take the virtue of courage. The person who has a deficiency of courage is cowardly. They run from every danger. The person who has an excess of courage is reckless. They rush into danger without thinking. According to Aristotle, the virtuous person finds the golden mean right in the middle. They are courageous, facing danger when necessary, but with appropriate caution and wisdom. You can apply this to almost anything. Generosity is the mean between stinginess and extravagance, and confidence is the mean between self-doubt and arrogance. It's a great mental model to use when you're facing a tough decision. Instead of thinking in black and white, try to find the balanced, virtuous path in the middle. And now for the moment you've been waiting for. At the beginning of the episode, I asked if Aristotle was in fact the personal tutor for Alexander the Great. Well, that's a fact. In 343 BCE, King Philip II of Macedon, Alexander's father, invited Aristotle to his court to educate his then 13-year-old son. For at least 3 years, Aristotle taught Alexander and a group of other aristocratic children subjects like medicine, philosophy, morals, religion, logic, and art. It's said that Aristotle prepared a special shortened version of the epic poem The Iliad for Alexander, which the young conqueror carried with him on all his military campaigns. While it's impossible to know exactly how much of Aristotle's philosophy Alexander absorbed, there's no doubt that one of the greatest minds in history directly shaped the education of one of its greatest military leaders. Now, I hope you enjoyed learning a bit about Aristotle with me today. Be sure to tune in every weekday for even more fun facts. Fun Facts Daily is an Airwave Media podcast. It was written, recorded, mixed, and edited by me, Kyle Wood. Thanks for sharing a part of your day with me. Be sure to follow Fun Facts Daily on your favorite podcast app so you can keep the good stuff coming your way every day. And if you like the show, please do me a favor and leave a kind rating, review, or just tell your friends about it.